evening, America. Happy President's Day, and welcome to the Monday edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from the nation's capital. Quick programming note, as I mentioned, my amazing co-cement head, she'll be keeping their citizens safe. Today, a fresh new example. Maryland's governor, you saw him last night on television, bragging about his agenda and his vision for America, but he's been unable to stop a sewage leak into the Potomac River, one of the most iconic rivers in the United States. More than 243 million gallons. Let me say that again. More than 243 million gallons of raw sewage flowing into the Potomac River unabated because Maryland did not have a plan to deal with this crisis. President Trump finally stepped into the void tonight, saying that he is going to direct FEMA to become part of the operation to take over for Maryland because he does not believe its governor can do the job properly. This crisis has been going on about 3 weeks now. Kind of remarkable that much sewage has been flowing into a river, and very little outcry. President Trump calling it out and putting the federal resources behind it. Now, quick program note, FEMA is among the agencies that the Democrats have closed because they wouldn't approve in the Senate, the Department of Homeland Security budget, which meant that FEMA has been closed down. But like the TSA workers, FEMA will be sent without pay to do the job because that's what federal workers do. I want to turn to a couple of other important stories before we get to our first guest. You have seen them for many, many years. Code Pink. They're the protesters that rudely interrupt congressional hearings or other public proceedings. That's probably the most famous thing that they do. Well, there's something else they've been doing, according to our great Jerry Dunleavy, the great investigative reporter we have here. They've been arranging red China trips so that Americans can go and become friendly with the communist Chinese. An entire expose on that today at justthenews.com. Check it out, because the leader of Code Pink is married to the man whose nonprofits are deeply involved in fomenting the protests and the anti-ICE movement that we saw in Wisconsin. A guy named Singham, who's very closely tied to the Chinese government. His wife runs Code Pink, and she and her group have been doing those trips to China, to communist China, putting all these dots together. The more we learn, the more we understand how our foreign enemies are consorting with those on our soil to weaken us right now. That's a pretty important and developing story. We'll have it covered all night long. Been some new developments just in the last hour on that, so keep a close eye on that. All right, I want to turn right away. We've got a great opening guest today. He represents the state of Wisconsin. He was the man that helped us understand how many tens of thousands of unaccompanied migrant children were lost by the Biden administration. Literally weren't tracked. They were trafficked by the cartels and then lost track of in the United States. Tom Homan, of course, getting a beat on. Of course, I'm talking about Congressman Glenn Grothman. He joins us right now. Congressman, great to have you back on the show.
Well, glad to be on the show, as always. Lots to talk about.
I want to start with something that you were so instrumental on. You don't get a lot of credit for it, but you were the person who shined a very powerful light on the failure of the Biden administration to follow up and check on the welfare and maintain the welfare of all of those migrant children that came here without their parents or unaccompanied. They were lost. Many of them were later found with sex traffickers and others. Bad actors clearly are swooping them up. Tom Homan has been rounding them up, getting them back to safety. Your thoughts on the effort by Tom Homan, the Homeland Security Department, and the continuing failures that we now learn about the Biden administration?
Oh, they did a horrible job on immigration, and I don't think the Republicans have done an adequate job of explaining what's going on in our country, and that, you know, the immigration story is a great success story for Donald Trump, and we have nothing to be embarrassed about. As I get around my district, I am finding people who are under the impression that, you know, it's very difficult to get in here and we're being mean to people from abroad. First of all, you've got to remember that on an average, every year, about 800,000 people are naturalized in this country. In other words, in the midst of this crisis where everybody says we're mean, or the Democrats saying we're being so mean, 800,000 people every year, approximately, are being sworn in as new American citizens. That's nothing to apologize for. Then, in addition to that, we have put ourselves in a position in which about 16% of our current population has been born abroad. That's the highest it's been since at least, the 1880s, as far as the huge number of people who we let in here were born abroad. Record amounts. And I don't think the Republicans talk about that anywhere near as much as they should. Like I said, it is not that impossible to become an American citizen here, enter here. But the problem is, rather than 800,000 a year, which, by the way, is about 6 times the number of people who are sworn in every year as were sworn in when I was a child. So we're being very generous historically and compared to other countries. And I don't think the Republicans have done a good job of getting that out. So what do we do with people in addition to the record number? Well, if we're going to have an immigration law, we have to remove them from this country, which is what Tom Homan is trying to do.
Yeah, so very important. Those statistics are stunning, and they're important, and you're right. They don't get talked about enough. We all need to do a better job educating the public a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the synergy we're now seeing with some of these illegal immigrants and bad actors. We have some Chinese illegal aliens that were running biolabs that were uncovered in very unsafe locations in California and Nevada. We've got these immigrant Somalis who defrauded the government to the tune of $18 billion potentially. And then we have others who are tied to the Taliban or in sex trafficking to the cartels. The collaboration is not only amongst their foreign countries now, but they seem to be working with a lot of people on our soil that want them to do bad things or certainly keep them from being arrested for doing bad things. How do we break that cycle? How do we particularly stop those nonprofits from collaborating with foreign bad actors on our soil?
Well, just more research, and we need more collaboration with ICE, educating the American public. I think the lack of education is one of the big problems. Look at what happened in Minnesota here, and the degree to which people are not being arrested who should be arrested. What's wrong in Minnesota? We have not explained the type of people who are getting away, and because we don't explain it, ICE does not get anywhere near the credit they do for the work they do. I mean, and as the result, many Democrats are saying, let's shut down ICE, which is close to one of the demands that they have, and one of the reasons why we still haven't closed out last year's budget, why given parts of the government are shutting down. You have Democrats, including the governor from Minnesota, right, which used to be a relatively level-headed state. All of these people are attacking ICE. We have no immigration law in this country if ICE does not exist. It's like saying we're going to cut down on crime, but we're going to lay off all the police. That is the position of too many Democrats right now. The public has to be aware of it as they prepare for the November election. Right now, the position of the Democrat Party is we do not want ICE, which is the agency which is charged of enforcing your immigration laws. Right? No ICE, no immigration law enforcement, and you have all this human trafficking, right, that is going to be uncovered by ICE as they poke around, remove people from this country, but also as they poke around, find more and more things. You know, we heard a rumor that happened in Wisconsin, in which, you know, it hasn't been prosecuted yet, but we may have found people who were human trafficking off of farms, which was just a general ICE operation, a general removal operation, but instead we found criminal activity.
You mentioned the blue states and their governors, Tim Walt's $18 billion fraud scheme, state officials, state workers, whistleblowers telling our Congress that they tried to warn him. He didn't want to listen. You've got Gavin Newsom, who goes to Germany while his state's got a $25-30 billion budget deficit in a severe fiscal crisis. And then Governor Wes Moore was on CBS doing a town hall getting national attention last night while his state has been unable now for 3 weeks to stop this massive raw sewage leak that goes into the Potomac River. The issue of competence seems to be a big vulnerability for Democrats right now. Are Republicans prepared to zero in on that coming ahead to the 2026 elections?
Well, we'll continue to have hearings on the thing, continue to educate the American public. But the big takeaway to me is, particularly with regard to dealing with foreigners and laws they are breaking, is the Democrat Party right now does not care about people illegally in this country. Not only do they care with a person just working on a farm, they don't care about people stealing billions of dollars. They don't care about people who are human trafficking. Otherwise, they would be focusing on these issues. Part of the problem, too, by the way, and I hope Mike Johnson and the crew do something along this, is right now too many welfare payments are paid for 100% or close to 100% by state governments. I was in state government for a long period of time, and I can tell you even responsible state legislators do not focus on money being spent that's federal money. That doesn't affect your state budget, just affects your national budget. The U.S. Congress ought to crack down and say at least 20 or 30% of welfare payments, including things like SNAP benefits, have to be paid for by local governments. They're in a lot better fiscal shape right now than the national government. And if we do that, maybe some of these state governments will pay attention to what is going with the variety of welfare benefits, so many right now, which are subject to fraud. And of course, part of the reason they're subject to fraud is the Democrats really don't seem to care if people who are in this country illegally are making millions of extra dollars.
Yeah, making bank at our expense. It's just remarkable. I want to turn to one other subject before we let you go, sir. There is a looking glass phenomenon. We can look at Great Britain and say that is what the Democrats and the left would like to do here in America. Rescind free speech, punish those, prosecute those for thought crimes, prosecute those for jokes and memes. It's actually something that's already been underway here at some of the local levels. But how concerned should we be about what's going on in Great Britain's free speech debate, and how close are we to being the next target of the far left and its erosion of freedom?
We should be concerned on two levels. First of all, when it comes to internet platforms, insofar as those platforms are dealing with speech coming out of Europe, restrictions in Europe can affect those platforms in the United States. So there's an immediate concern there. But the longer concern is frequently when bad things happen in Europe, it winds up coming on our shores another 15 or 20 years later. Right now, you cannot tell jokes about immigration in Great Britain. Think about that. There is a woman right now in the Finnish parliament who is facing severe sanctions for quoting the Bible. I mean, we can't talk about that enough. Is this coming to the United States? I don't know why it wouldn't come to the United States as things continue to decline, unless we keep the Republicans around here. Are we headed to the time where some bureaucrats say, this part of the Bible is hate speech, so we're going to ban you from quoting this part of the Bible, just as we are banning comedians in Great Britain for talking about making fun of the illegal immigration? That's what's going on. Really even more important than the economic issues, and Donald Trump's doing a good job with the economic issues. But I think our voters and your listeners have to focus a little bit more on the freedom issues and the fact that freedom of speech is disappearing in Europe. And it's only a small amount of time before those same restrictions are suggested by the Democrats. You remember, Joe Biden tried to have a new commission.
He did? The Disinformation Commission.
The Disinformation Commission. That's what Joe Biden wanted to do. Just because there are a few common sense Democrats now doesn't mean if they ever get back in there, that Disinformation Commission is going to come right back, and they're going to restrict Americans from talking about things that that the powers that be want to suppress. But it's going on in Europe right now. They keep track of it.
Yeah, state of New York doesn't want to let parents object to men and women's sports. It could be a potential criminal offense there. That's underway in the state of New York. It's already creeped over the Atlantic, at least in that case. Congressman, as you always are, a bellwether for what's over the horizon, always on top of the stuff that makes a difference to America. Great to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Now or never for America.
Amen. That's exactly right. What a great conversation as always. All right, folks, quick commercial break around the corner. When we come back, why did Democrats like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez accuse President Trump of wanting to bring about an age of authoritarianism? I don't know. If you heard U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's speech, it was a very different speech than what Democrats were claiming it to be. We're going to tackle all of that with former National Security Advisor Steve Yates right after these messages. Hey folks, did you know that high blood pressure is the #1 risk factor for mortality? Half of all adults have high blood pressure, myself included, and most people don't feel it until it becomes a real problem. February is American Heart Month, and if you've fallen off a few New Year's resolutions, that's okay. This is a simple, measurable way to get back on track and do something meaningful for your heart. 120 Life is a once-a-day functional drink made with ingredients that help support healthy blood pressure. It's not a pill, not a stimulant, not some trendy wellness gimmick. It's made from a blend of superfruit juices. I take it every day. Refreshing, not chalky, not medicinal, easy to make part of your daily routine, which matters because consistency is everything. Go to 120life, 120life.com, and use my code JTN for 20% off. Try it risk-free for 2 weeks. If your blood pressure doesn't come down, you'll get a full refund. That's 120life.com, 120life.com. Use the promo code JTN for 20% off. Go check it out.
Welcome to Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Your quick look at the powerful stories of faith and freedom, inspiring audiences across the nation. Angel Studios presents.
I'm Bo Davidson with this Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Most people know the biblical story of David, the shepherd boy who fought Goliath and became king. Well, Angel Studios has created a new animated film called David that tells the story of Israel's greatest king.
There's a light I've always followed when I'm looking for the way, when I'm searching for the answer, in the moments I'm afraid. There's a whisper in the wind, and a story in the sky, when I'm looking for a lantern to illuminate the night. If you want the secret of freedom and feeling alive, you gotta follow the light. Follow the light.
For those who love great animated classics like The Lion King and Prince of Egypt, David is an awe-inspiring animated musical that depicts David as a spirited boy who fought lions, giants, and even betrayal, depicting how one boy's faith could lead him to be king of Israel. David will be released in theaters just in time for Christmas on December 19th, but your family can get a head start by watching the prequel to the film, Young David, which is streaming exclusively right now on Angel. It's perfect for the entire family and has memorable music. So once you join the Angel Guild, you can start watching Young David right now and prepare the fam for the David film in theaters in December. And by joining the Guild, you'll guarantee 2 free tickets to see it. And it's a great value. Let's be honest, going to the movies isn't all that cheap. But if you're a member of the Angel Guild, not only do you get those 2 free tickets to David, but you'll now have access to every single film or TV series on Angel at your convenience.
Welcome back, America. Some of the Democratic Party's top elites, including AOC and Gavin Newsom and others, were streaming their way through Munich, telling the Europeans exactly what's wrong with America, at least in their view. In many cases, though, getting not so positive reviews from the audiences both here and abroad. AOC particularly stumbled on a question involving protecting Taiwan from Chinese aggression. Here to make sense of all of it, is a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He's also the former White House Deputy National Security Advisor to the Vice President, Steve Yates. Steve, great to have you back on the show again.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I thought there were 2 extraordinary kind of storylines. One is that I thought Rubio put the America First Trump foreign policy doctrine in a very clear terms as it relates to Europe, but that mostly got overshadowed by all the Democratic elites yammering about things that often made them, I think, look silly back home. What's your takeaway from the Munich conference so far?
Well, I give a lot of credit to Secretary Rubio for getting a standing ovation in her room after declaring that they were wrong for going after the climate cult. That is a threshold turn of the universe. Now, I don't know that they were giving him the standing ovation for that. He was, I think, very expert at speaking to an audience where they are in order to drag them, whether they know it or like it, in his direction. And he spoke in such clear and common sense terms, I think it was very hard for them to disagree. And he spoke eloquently about the deep arteries of common culture that we share. Those are undeniable, and yet, for the globalist era, they have exactly been denying those arteries of common culture. He talked about Christianity. He talked about the actual movement of people that were his ancestors and other people's ancestors coming across. And there's so much that was there in common. So there just are very few serious people that have been able to go to Europe and say that unfiltered and unapologetically. It's basically been Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Marco Rubio that have stood out the most. But, Dems gave their version of things, but really all they wanted to say was Trump bad, Trump bad. And I think Europe sort of agrees. They don't like President Trump, but that's because that's all they consume. And they aren't terribly impressed by what the alternatives are that the Democrats are trying to present.
Yeah, that was really, really clear. I mean, if you're Gavin Newsom, you're leaving behind a state with $30 billion of debt and a fiscal crisis. I'm sorry, $30 budget deficit, $1 trillion of debt, and a population that wants to get out of California quicker than it was coming in. If you're AOC, you can't even answer the fundamental question of where America stands on Taiwan. And if you're Hillary Clinton, well, you get booed by some of your own people because you've just flip-flopped on immigration again, and now you're saying maybe we should have done a better job getting rid of illegal aliens. It did seem like the Democrats had a pretty bumpy display at Munich.
Yeah, I don't know if they were trying to market test different things, if this was accidental or on purpose, but the net effect was this did not come across as smart. There were not serious policy ideas engaged, and Europe is sort of at a tipping point themselves. While they might have bought the dream and they're not with the America First movement in terms of just the media cycles that they've been in endlessly, but a lot of their countries are under severe strain because of unfettered immigration, and there's a lot of Europe that actually is faithful. It just has stopped going to church for a while, and they're trying to figure out what the future holds. And if the future is going to be dominated by recent additions to their country, that scares a lot of them. And that I think is a tension that the Trump administration is able to tap into with understanding and give a vision for the future that says, look, we're not here to tear you down. We're here to encourage you to wake up and sort of man up and be ready for the future. And if we can do that together, we got a great chance of overcoming what Russia, China, and Iran want to put out into the world.
Such a great point. Well, where Democrats are these days, you often find the Chinese as well, and the Chinese were all over Munich. But it is sort of interesting. I think Donald Trump, with his actions over the last several months, has made China look a little bit less like a superpower. Couldn't stop or protect Venezuela, couldn't protect Iran from the nuclear attack. Seems to be losing a grip in our hemisphere. Has China gone down a peg, a notch on the board right now with Donald Trump's sort of Monroe Doctrine?
Well, I think that with President Trump, there is this what is said and what is done dichotomy, and people tend to get really, really distracted with what is said. So he'll say some very, very flattering things about Xi Jinping. Not my favorite thing to listen to. I really intensely dislike Xi Jinping. But what President Trump does is he says those things and he pulls them in close for negotiations. But all that he's doing to revive the American economy, all that he's doing to get right on energy and resources, all that he's doing to right-size this hemisphere, he's just really pushing button after button. And America is making a difference in the world, and the world might fuss about the way and how it sounds, but they can't deny there's only one leader in the world that has the potential to bring peace and prosperity to the broader Middle East, have a prayer at trying to get Europe to wake up and have a revival and maybe do better by its own neighbors. And there's no one else that anyone in the world thinks they can turn to try to stem the rise that has been the Chinese Communist Party's rise. And I distinguish that from China. It isn't really China's rise that's a concern. It's the Communist Party and all the ill that comes with it. That, I think, has rattled a lot of cages. And whether the world likes it or not, there's only one Trump. And so far, he's the only genie keeping the cork in the bottle.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I want to look in our hemisphere for a second. All right, Venezuela seems to be providing a lot of useful intelligence to the United States beyond the oil. We seem to know a lot more about the shadow fleets, and that's strangling Russia, Iran, and Cuba's energy trade. How dire are things in Cuba, and could we see regime change in Cuba still this year?
Well, I do think that the pressure is pretty intense, and it's with the new administration, I think that their strategy is still to sort of ratchet up the pressure so that organically a transition is occurring inside. I think it's also been part of the strategy in Venezuela and maybe in other areas too, that whoever the alternative leader that arises not appear to be chosen by President Trump or the United States, not because I think that would be a bad thing. I think it's one of the lessons that we painfully learned in Iraq and Afghanistan, that if you have a war that or other activity that topples that leadership, and you have someone who openly looks like America's choice, it's hard for them to settle in and reform and govern. And so I think all those things are at play at once. Really, there couldn't be a team more historically prepared and focused on this. I mean, really, Marco Rubio has lived this issue his entire life. President Trump is someone who came of age in an era where we did think about Cuba a lot. So I think it's one of those historical legacies that could be on the cusp. But I think they're going to gradually ratchet up the pressure and hopefully push for a change without having to do much more than what happened with Venezuela.
Yeah, it's very important to keep an eye on. Before we let you go, Steve, the Chinese have made extraordinary inroads in the United States. We see it with those illicit bioweapons labs, with the researchers and their pathogens, with all of the infiltration into our academic institutions, our corporate institutions. But now it seems as though there's much more open partnerships between Chinese communists and people like the Sing Network and other places where people on our own soil are openly collaborating with China to destabilize America. Code Pink running Red China trips, something we had in our news site this morning. How do we break that tie between Americans who get a tax break from our system and the Chinese who want to use that tax break and those people to do us harm?
Well, John, I think this has been going on for a long time, and it's really only because of investigative journalists who really, in recent years, have taken a huge dive into this and pulled these stories from obscurity and made people have to pay attention to them. And you've been among those that have been pushing this kind of investigative journalism out. There are a few other colleagues around in the business that have been doing it, and basically that has been a godsend to getting people to say, wait a minute, we were allowing what to happen? And we just made it easy for the Chinese Communist Party for the longest time. And we're just at the cusp of starting to let common sense make it a little harder for our enemies to come in and destabilize, divide, much less threaten us. But it's really, I give all the credit to the people who've actually found these stories and brought the evidence to the fore, because it's been happening for decades. It's gradually cooked the frog, and it's happening in a lot of different cities. And so we're just starting now to see stories that pop up in California, in Missouri, in Michigan, and then all over New York, D.C., all of it. And so we're starting to get state activity and national activity, and people are sort of seeing with their own eyes. And hopefully that's the point of no return, and we get some common sense about we'll not let the CCP do in our country what Americans are not even closely allowed to do in theirs.
If you were advising the president, would you ask him to maybe, or have the IRS take a look at some of these tax exemptions and make sure they're really creating public good here?
I would. I mean, my threshold is if the fruits of the 501c3 are violence, disruption, and attacking other Americans, that is the fruit of a poison tree from my point of view. If the fruits of the 501c3 are to write more white papers and long discourses about cultural issues or whatever, then I say let 1,000 flowers bloom, and I like our odds. But these nonprofits are clearly tied in with neo-Marxist, radical, violent activities. And that, I think, needs new statute and needs to be shut down.
Yeah, I think we may be at the moment that has soon to happen. Steve Yates, it's always a great honor. I love the work you do at Heritage Foundation. You're always an incredibly clear voice inside the White House. Great to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
It's an honor. Thank you, John.
Yeah, I really enjoy your conversation every time we're together. All right, folks, a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk to a congressional candidate for Wyoming about education in America and what President Trump's administration has done to return education to the states and, more importantly, to parents. We're going to tackle that next with Jillian Balow right after this.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Real America's Voice is growing, and now it's all in one place. Introducing the new and improved RAV app, built for access, community, and choice, not paywalls. Here's the key. RAV is still free to watch. No sign-in, no membership required. Your favorite live streams, breaking coverage, and video on demand are all right there. Free, just like always.
For the War Room Posse, we have to be a force multiplier on this. We have to stick the landing.
In the White House, in the Oval Office, you're crushing it, my friend.
And if you want more, the members section is your backstage pass. Get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and videos, insider moments from the studio and the field, and early access to new content before it goes public. Members can also unlock special experiences like virtual meet and greets, member-only auctions, and select event access, plus commercial-free viewing of certain shows inside the app. It's not just an app, it's a community. Download the RAV app today. Find it in the App Store and Google Play.
Welcome back, America. It wasn't that long ago where Virginia was the ground zero for what became, I think, one of the most powerful parents' movements in all of the country's history. At the time, Jillian Balow was right alongside Glenn Youngkin as the Virginia Superintendent of Public Instruction. Today, she's out in Wyoming running for a congressional seat, and she joins us right now. Jillian, great to have you on the show again.
Thanks, John. It's great to be here.
All right, this is a big switch. You're running the schools in Virginia now. You're running for Congress in Wyoming. What gave you the inkling to go do this?
Yeah, hey, I am a Wyoming girl through and through. Virginia was my gap year to help out the Youngkin administration, and like you said, ground zero for education. I was honored to be tapped and honored to do the work that we did in Virginia, but Wyoming is home, has been for 5 generations. In Wyoming, my Virginia position is actually elected. So I was elected to the office of State Superintendent in Wyoming twice, and now I am running for Congress, yes.
How about that? Well, we need a little more of that common sense Wyoming education in some states around this country, like California maybe, or New York. Tell us a little bit about what you're picking up on the ground as you run and you're talking to everyday Wyomings. What are you hearing are the top issues heading into the 26 race?
Yeah, look, I'm not personally from a wealthy family in Wyoming, and so I'm not writing the big checks that are being written in other races in this state and across the nation. So I am on the ground talking to voters every single day. I'm going to earn votes. Best way to do that is to get to know people. Top of mind in Wyoming is energy. When Wyoming has great and innovative energy production, that means that we are prosperous, America is prosperous, America is safe, and the world is a safer place to exist. And so super excited to have that as one of my top platform issues. Of course, education is my wheelhouse. I really care about kids and families. That's where I've spent most of my career working. And so we'll be working on behalf of children and families, as well as veterans and ranchers and conservationists and all of the people that make up this great state of Wyoming.
Yeah, such a vibrant state and such a vibrant economy, so important to so much of what our future holds for the country. When you watch Secretary of Education Linda McMahon and all the things she's done to implement the Trump promises, there was a long checklist that Donald Trump made to parents. I attended a couple of those rallies. One of them, I think, was Moms for Liberty. And he promised a lot of things that they're getting done piece by piece. How would you rate the scorecard of progress on education reform under Donald Trump?
Well, growth and achievement are A+++, above proficient, excellent. So I'm super excited to be rolling along with this administration. And from day one, President Trump and Secretary McMahon have been unwavering in their focus regarding education. You know, Trump 1.0 gave us a good vision of what education could look like. We did some work on that in Virginia. Governor Youngkin's administration did some wonderful things to rid classrooms of ideology and move forward on excellence in education. But this administration, President Trump, Secretary McMahon, have really put the spending power in the hands of states and at kitchen tables where it matters, with school choice, with the bundling of federal funds so that they can go with the child instead of into earmarked pet projects by NGOs and advocacy groups, and just again an unwavering focus on what matters in classrooms. That's reading, that's math, that's STEM, that's civics education, and this administration has done a great job of making sure that we are measuring student outcomes that are related directly to that and putting those decisions and that responsibility and accountability in the hands of states and school districts. This administration has also just unleashed innovation in education with school choice assessments and again the way that funding is put together. And I am so excited about the Trump accounts. And even though that's not being heralded as an education issue per se, it really has a positive impact on every single child in this nation. And it's great to see the red states embracing this first, but the blue states are abandoning some ad hominem crises and saying, you know what, we're on board, we're moving forward as well.
I want to give everyone just a quick programming note. Folks, if you were looking in the box, that was President Trump taking off from West Palm Beach, headed back to Washington, D.C. He'll be back in the White House this evening. That's what that footage is. We'll be keeping you up to speed on that. Jillian, before I let you go, one of the big challenges that stands in the way of education progress, particularly in blue states, are the teachers' unions. They have dug their heels in and oftentimes are more interested in political ideology than traditional learning. What are some of the best ideas out there to maybe break the teachers' unions' hold on education so that we can get more progress quicker?
Well, I am proud because I am a candidate in Wyoming who was unendorsed by the teachers' unions. Had to give them their check back. They endorsed me, and then they decided that I wasn't so good for teachers' unions. We did a lot of great work in Virginia. There are a lot of states that still allow teachers to have the unions take their dues right out of their paychecks so they don't feel it. That needs to go away. In terms of teachers' unions, they don't say a whole lot about kids. The focus needs to be on students in classrooms, not on the adults, and not on increased funding for programs that have never worked before. This administration, President Trump, has done a great job of debunking the myths around teachers' unions, and we need to continue that. And we'll see that done across this nation as we go forward. But again, I am a proud, unendorsed candidate of the teachers' unions.
How about that? That could be a trend. That might start pretty soon. Jillian, before we let everybody go, what's the best way for people to stay in touch with your campaign, or if they're interested in supporting how to do that?
Well, thanks. It's Jillian Balow for Wyoming.com, and would love to hear from you. I am accountable to the people, and the best way to do that is to get to know you and understand what's important to you. So again, it's Jillian Balow for Wyoming.com. And again, John, thanks for all the great work you do. Happy to share the screen with President Trump and you in a quick 8-10 minute block.
It was a great conversation, and I know people are pretty excited about the incredible campaign you're running. Great to have you on, Jillian. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, John. Good to see you again.
Thank you. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, a little health on the mind. You know, I deal with high blood pressure. A lot of us do. There's some healthy ways to deal with that. Actually, natural ways to deal with that. We're going to deal with one of those right after the commercial break. But first, these messages from our great sponsors here at Real America's Voice.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shopped. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Real America's Voice is growing, and now it's all in one place. Introducing the new and improved RAV app, built for access, community, and choice, not paywalls. Here's the key. RAV is still free to watch. No sign-in, no membership required. Your favorite live streams, breaking coverage, and video on demand are all right there. Free, just like always.
For the War Room Posse, we have to be a force multiplier on this. We have to stick the landing.
In the White House, in the Oval Office, you're crushing it, my friend.
And if you want more, the members section is your backstage pass. Get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and videos, insider moments from the studio and the field, and early access to new content before it goes public. Members can also unlock special experiences like virtual meet and greets, member-only auctions, and select event access, plus commercial-free viewing of certain shows inside the app. It's not just an app, it's a community. Download the RAV app today. Find it in the App Store and Google Play.
Welcome back, America. We talk often about blood pressure being a silent killer. Lots of Americans, over half of Americans deal with it. A lot of times they don't know about it until it's already too late, meaning there's some damage in their body. My next guest has done something about that. He's created an amazing product. I use it every day, 120 Life. I love it. He's the founder of 120 Life, Ira Intellis. Ira, great to have you back on the show.
Love being here, and thanks for having me.
I love this conversation. I love your product. I use it every day. I'm very proud of that. But you had a very specific reason why you created this product. And I always love when innovation is born out of necessity. Tell us a little bit about how you came to create 120 Life.
Sure. Again, it's great to be here. As you could sort of see in my background, my life really has been in music. Blood pressure was not on the list of things to do. And I had a health issue, and my blood pressure sort of kept rising, and I kept denying it like many Americans do. Was at the eye doctor. They measured my blood pressure. It was high. A week later, I'm in the pharmacy. I'm like, hey, can you take my blood pressure? They said, sure. It was high. And I'm like, nah, it can't be. But I did buy a blood pressure monitor, and over the week, I'm like, I'll prove everybody wrong. I'll keep taking it. But I kept taking it, and it was high. And because of my health issue, I called my doctor, who I went to see him, and he said, it's high enough that if you don't get your blood pressure down in 3 weeks, we're going to have to do surgery.
Wow.
And I was sort of like shocked. And the thing
that'll get your attention.
Oh, that got my attention. And then the second part of it was I didn't know how I would tell my daughter that I had to go into the hospital. So I'm like, I got to figure this out and drop my blood pressure, you know. So I sort of did what many people would do. I started reading, you know. First thing I read about is you should cut your salt and sodium. Right. Second thing was for everybody, that's like number one. Because everything we eat, you know, has salt and sodium, and you have to start to minimize it. Yep. Then I was reading about what you should eat, and the funny thing about that was the things they told. I love food a lot. The only two foods I really didn't like in my life were beets and Brussels sprouts, and those are like the first two things you should be eating. I'm like, oh,
absolutely.
And then I went to the drinks, and I kept reading it again. I didn't really believe it. It would say, well, if you drink pomegranate juice, it'll lower your blood pressure. And I'm like, yeah, right. But then I read the studies. If you drink beet juice, it will lower your blood. And I kept reading about all these different things. And one Sunday morning, I said to my wife, I'm going to go to the grocery store, which is something I don't do a lot. And she looked a little bewildered. I said, I'm going to buy all these drinks that I've been reading about, and I'm going to make this drink because there's nothing out there for people with high blood pressure. And she thought I had lost my mind. And I went to the store, I bought everything, and there we began. It's almost 10 years with 120 Life.
And now you've shared it with this hundreds of thousands of Americans, and we're so grateful. I use it. I did the experiment. I wanted to find out. I already suffer from high blood pressure. I've got my beta blockers, all things you're supposed to take. But I was on it for about 3 weeks, and I checked my lower number, which is the harder one to drop sometimes, was down about 6. It's now down about 8 points now that I'm routinely on it. So tell us how this works. How did you do? What does it do to lower hypertension?
Sure. So I'm going to go over some things, and I'll probably repeat it twice, because if you never heard it, it can be a little hard to digest. But one of my close friends, who happens to also be my cardiologist, looked at the drink and he said, I think I know why it works. And I didn't really know anything about why it would work, except I thought it would. And he said, because many of the things in your drink mirror the medications. So, for example, if you have high blood pressure and you go to a doctor, one of the things they might do immediately is give you what's called a diuretic. And the reason they give you a diuretic is if we are retaining water, or we have too much water and salt in our bodies, our heart is working hard and it's putting stress on our heart. So a diuretic helps get rid of water. In our drink, we have 3 of them: cranberry juice, beets, and hibiscus tea. Another thing they might do is give you what's called a beta blocker. And what the medication for a beta blocker, what it does is it immediately slows your heart rate. So let's say your heart is beating at 100 beats per minute, and you take a beta blocker, it should drop to 90, 95. It drops. Right. That's what beta blockers do. Well, pomegranate juice and magnesium in our drink are beta blockers. A third thing, and I was thinking back to my grandfather, he had health issues, and he used to carry around this little pill box of nitrates, and I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11, but whenever he had like angina or chest pains, he would pop one of these things. And what nitrates do is they dilate. It opens up your blood vessels, so less pain in the chest. And in our drink, beets can act like nitrates. So those are some of the reasons why our ingredients seem to work. They sort of mirror the medication in natural form.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful you did all that reading. I know it was in a moment of crisis, but your research led to a really extraordinary product, and we're really, really grateful. For someone listening and watching today, what is one or more signs they should be watching for that they are suffering from high blood pressure, things that you might not be thinking of?
Yeah, so as you mentioned when we started, this is called the silent killer. And it took me a couple of years to figure this out, but think of it this way. When you have high blood pressure, your heart is working incrementally harder daily. And you might not feel it for a month. You might not feel it for 2 months. But if you have high blood pressure over time, at some point, if you don't do something, it could be catastrophic. You could have a stroke. You could have a heart attack. You could have kidney issues. So what we tell people always is don't buy 120 Life immediately. You must know if you have it. So you either go to your doctor, you go to your pharmacy, or even I bought a high blood pressure monitor for $40 8 years ago, and I still use it. And I take it in my house 3 times a week. And that's the number one thing you must know, because it's called the silent killer. People have reported, I felt fine on Wednesday, and I had a stroke on Thursday. But it's incremental. It's the strain on the heart over and over a period of time, and that's what happens.
Vigilance. That's what you've taught me, and also good, healthy eating and drinking, which you've made so much easier with 120 Life. Ira, it's such a great honor to have you back on the show. I'm so grateful for what you've come out with. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay, last thing.
Folks, to our viewers. Oh, yeah, I'll tell you, if you're looking to improve your health and support healthy blood pressure levels, visit 120life.com, 120life.com. Use my promo code JTN for 20% off. That's 120life.com, promo code JTN, 20% off. Go check it out. It's amazing. All right, quick commercial break. One more discussion to go. Back to one of my favorite issues, election integrity. We'll have that next, right after these messages.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Real America's Voice is growing, and now it's all in one place. Introducing the new and improved RAV app, built for access, community, and choice, not paywalls. Here's the key. RAV is still free to watch. No sign-in, no membership required. Your favorite live streams, breaking coverage, and video on demand are all right there. Free, just like always.
For the War Room Posse, we have to be a force multiplier on this. We have to stick the landing.
In the White House, in the Oval Office, you're crushing it, my friend.
And if you want more, the members section is your backstage pass. Get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and videos, insider moments from the studio and the field, and early access to new content before it goes public. Members can also unlock special experiences like virtual meet and greets, member-only auctions, and select event access, plus commercial-free viewing of certain shows inside the app. It's not just an app, it's a community. Download the RAV app today. Find it in the App Store and Google Play.
Welcome back, America. Back in the days before it was fashionable to be focused on election integrity, I spent some time down in Georgia. I got to meet our next guest. He did a lot of work. He was a voice crying in the wilderness back in those days. Today, he's a voice that sounds an awful lot like the FBI special agent who wrote that incredible search warrant affidavit because he found many of the things that the FBI has now substantiated. He's a co-founder of Voters Organized for Trust Election Results in Georgia, Garland Favorita. Garland, great to have you back on the show.
John, thank you for having me. It's great to be on.
All right, I've been amused in the last couple of weeks because I've read the FBI affidavit and the search warrant. It's pretty clear that they said they substantiated a lot of serious things. In fact, a lot of the sentences begin, Fulton County admits that this happened. But the media keep trying to suggest this is old, debunked conspiracy theories. How do you reconcile that in Georgia?
It's really easy, John. The probable cause for the warrant focused on 5 areas. One was the vote count discrepancies. There were 3 counts, and they told us that it all added up. All 3 counts matched. In reality, the audit, which was conducted of the original count, had 6,691 double reported ballots and a 3,466 discrepancy difference. That was confirmed by Governor Kemp's own study that was based on our information that Joe Rossi took to him, and Joe did a great job of getting the governor to corroborate the information that David Cross and others had put out there. So that's one. That is fully corroborated. It's not debunked. The governor's own report has it. And the machine count that they did after that, that was off another 4,880 votes. Yeah. So that's number one. The second one is the double scan ballots. We now know that there's 3,930 double scanned and double counted ballots. The state election board heard that on July 9th of 2024 from expert witness testimony from Philip Davis. He's a 30-year career image analyst, and they got all that on the record. That has never been refuted. So that's two. Then you've got the counterfeit ballots, number three, which was sworn affidavits from 4 senior poll managers and 2 audit monitors that found counterfeit ballots in the Fulton County audit. And that was when I was there and Caroline Jeffords was there. We filed that original lawsuit back in December 23rd of 2020. They knew they were counterfeit, John, because they were mail-in ballots. They weren't folded from being mailed. Yeah. They weren't written with a writing instrument. It looked like it was toner copied. They were not on the correct paper stock, and they were voted the same way down ballot for dozens of a row. So that's three things, and then the fourth one is the missing records, which there was a criminal referral just recently for 315,000. There were ballots from missing tabulator tapes, ballot images actually. And that's only a portion of over 1 million missing records, missing images, missing SHA files, signature authentication files that back that up. And then you've got the whole other issue of Fulton County backfilling about 17,000 votes to make everything match up. Yeah. So not to mention all of that has been proven in state election board investigations, the governor and so on. Very little is unproven.
Garland, we only got about 30 seconds left. I could spend all day talking to you, but real quickly, what is the solution for 26? Is it for the state to run Fulton County? What do you want to see happen to give Georgians a better confidence in their system this time around?
I think that Greg Dolezal was correct. Senator Dolezal, when he came on, I think that is a legitimate solution. I mean, we just can't trust Fulton County to run their elections. They haven't really put in place the things they need to do. They're still hiding the ballots from us. I've got a complaint right now going in where they told me 4 times that they had no responsive records to my ballot request. That's right. Then on January 28th, they said they had the ballots. Did they have them or not?
Carl, we're going to have to leave it there just because we hit the end of the show, my friend. Great honor to have you on. We're going to keep a close eye on Fulton County and Georgia, as we always do. Such an important place to get right. Folks, that's all the time we got. We'll be back tomorrow with more programming. Until then, God bless you.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shopped. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Real America's Voice is growing, and now it's all in one place. Introducing the new and improved RAV app, built for access, community, and choice, not paywalls. Here's the key. RAV is still free to watch. No sign-in, no membership required. Your favorite live streams, breaking coverage, and video on demand are all right there. Free, just like always.
For the War Room Posse, we have to be a force multiplier on this. We have to stick the landing.
In the White House, in the Oval Office, you're